Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Andrew. We are the IB English guys. Folks, today we want to talk about sentence stems and how sentence stems can lead us to deeper insight in all of our analysis for the course.
That's right. We know that they're so important. They help us kind of get started and unlock our thinking. So the first thing we want to do is take a look at, we're looking at a political cartoon by one of our cartoonists that we love, Patrick Chapat. This is ripped out of the headlines. It's about a situation in Germany with the sort of far-right political party that's gaining some ground.
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Giles. This is published on September 7th, 2024, and in response to that recent German election. So that turned a lot of heads, and Chapat has some commentary that he wants to discuss.
Yeah, so this far-right party is making us think.
Now, Mr. Giles, we can't just write our response. We need to start somewhere. Give me a sentence stem to get us going.
Yeah, first we want to think about, I noticed that. This phrase, I noticed that, will help us really just pay attention to describe what we see on the page.
Mr. Giles, I noticed that there's a boy wearing what appears to be a World War II Nazi uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also noticed that these parents, presumably the parents, are horrified at what they see their son wearing.
Yeah, Mr. Giles, I noticed that there's like a little keychain in the handle of the door. It implies that this door was unlocked.
Oh, well, that's a subtle detail like that. We also noticed that I also noticed that this boy seems to be come from the attic that's dark upstairs, and he's coming down from.
Yeah, Mr. Giles, I think this sentence stem is really helpful. It just gives us an access point to get into the text, right? Now that we're going to look at the text a little more carefully, let's go for a second sentence stem and see if we can build bigger ideas.
This is a text about. What does that help us do?
Mr. Giles, this is this is going to help us identify the topics, these big topics, which we can then later connect to build a thesis statement.
Love it.
Mr. Giles, this is a text about voting.
Ooh, interesting. This is a text about German youth.
This is a text about history.
Ooh, this is a text about the Nazi past.
Mr. Giles, this is a text about family.
Ooh, this is a text about nationalism.
It's a text about parenting. Mr. Giles, this is a text about many things. Why is this so important again?
It's helping us kind of brainstorm the big ideas that Patrick Chapat is making us think about.
That's right. Now we have a table of big ideas. Now we have to start looking for relationships. We have to pause and ask some questions using these big ideas.
Okay, how and why does fear lead to extremism?
Wow, what role do parents play in educating their children about far-right ideologies? What's their job there?
Yeah, what's the relationship between nationalism, fear, and family?
Mr. Giles, what are the dangers of repeating history, and what role does this play in democratic elections?
Wow, that's fun. Like you're taking these different topics and you're brainstorming questions. Well, how they relate to each other.
Now that we've done some of that thinking of those relationships, we move to sentence stem number 3. Sentence stem number 3 reads as follows. This text argues that. I do like that. It forces you to say, you can't say this text argues voting. Like you got to say something after the word that.
Yeah, that's true. This text argues that today's far-right ideologies threaten to erode the morals and ethics of Germany.
This text argues that recent elections in Germany should strike fear in parents, as a return to extremism could lead German youth to repeat the past atrocities of the Nazi party. That thing smells like a 7 in the making, Giles.
Right. This text argues that voting has never been more important, as German youth are threatening to reintroduce extremist ideas not seen since the Nazi party of World War II.
Yeah, so folks, the idea here, again, is you're looking at those topics you generated before, you're looking for those relationships, you're asking questions, and you're making complex multi-part thesis statements. Are we done, Giles?
We're not done, because now we're going to start to drill down and we're going to start to look at some of the different authorial choices. We're going to have to name those choices and think about how those connect to rich ideas.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity to remind you all of the base table that we use for textual deconstruction in the course. Simple textual references, authorial choices with the box for analysis. Giles, why don't you start us off?
Well, we see the boy standing with a Nazi uniform. We want to think about his clothing. We want to think about his posture, think about his facial expression, all those things that Patrick Chapat does. And this makes a connection between today's youth and the AFD and the Nazi Party of Germany.
Yeah,
that drawing helps us see that.
I really was interested by that reference, cool vintage stuff. Of course, this is sarcasm, colloquial language, and irony, because this is not cool stuff, Mr. Giles. This is not trendy like the boy thinks. Rather, this should shock and horrify the reader of this boy's ignorance with the implications and what that uniform actually represents.
That's great. We look at the parents standing in horror, and we notice, again, the posture, the clothing, all that, the way that they look, their expression, their eyes. The eyes are always really carefully drawn, and this shows their shock and how they're just horrified at what they're, and really like a sense of horror at what they're son is wearing.
This takes us to sentence stem number 4, Mr. Giles, the magic sentence. Tell me about it.
I love the magic sentence. We put the writer in the driver's seat. We have a good verb. Then we connect that to the feature, the technique. We have a second purpose verb. And lastly, we have the rich idea.
Well,
the rich idea is the analysis.
That's the insight, Mr. Giles. Let me take a stab at it. Chapat employs sarcasm in the phrase cool vintage stuff to illustrate that the boy is unaware of the uniform's historical significance and links to far-right ideologies. Magic sentence. Good analysis.
Here's one more. Chapat leverages, I like that word, leverages the posture of facial expressions of the parents standing in horror to express their shock and fear upon realizing their son's warped morals and ethics.
Yeah, so a really helpful sentence stem to just get you into those references, get you into those authorial choices, and get you to communicate a rich idea. But there's more, Mr. Giles. We've got to go a little bit further. Sentence stem number 5, reaching for implications. What do we got?
Although not explicitly stated, the author implies that...
Ooh, I like this one. Although not explicitly stated, Chapat implies that the boy is ignorant of German history. He seemingly celebrates Nazi ideology and is eager to apply hatred in a more modern context rather than to reject the atrocities of the past.
Wow, that's great. Although not explicitly stated, Chapat implies that the boy sees the Nazi uniform as a powerful and nationalistic artifact rather than a representation of brutality and shame.
Now, folks, again, the idea here is you're reading between the lines. None of this is explicitly stated in the political cartoon. You have to reach for those further implications and insights. That's criterion A. Giles, before we sign off today, what do you say we just go over these sentence stems one more time and talk about why they matter?
Sentence stem number 1, I notice that. Helps us describe and just pay attention to the details.
Sentence stem number 2, this is a text about, and that helps us identify the key topics of the text.
Sentence stem number 3, this text argues that. That helps us bring those topics, show the relationship, and arrive at a thesis.
Sentence stem number 4, writer plus verb plus technique plus reference plus verb plus idea equals
the magic sentence.
And that's good for base level analysis. But if you want to go deeper, Mr. Giles?
Sentence stem number 5, although not explicitly stated, the author implies that. This helps us reach for those further implications and show deep thinking.
Folks, attached to this video, you'll find a document in the video description. Feel free to open that up. There's some nice graphic organizer. You can take a crack at this as well. Share it with your teacher. Ask for some feedback, and you too will improve in IB English.
Thanks, guys.